You know, I thought Marion was annoying, but then I remembered the Temple of Doom, and that gave me the willies. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Directed by Steven Spielberg, starring our favorite scruffy-looking nerf herder, Harrison Ford, and Karen Allen as his spunky, hard-drinking love interest, Marion Ravenwood. Released in 1981, the film utilized the combined strength of two visionary filmmakers, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, who have both done more for film than plastic surgery. Raiders of the Lost Ark drew heavy influences from the adventure serials of the 1930s, as well as the 1954 film Secret of the Incas, in which Charlton Heston plays a treasure hunter in a brown leather jacket and fedora who uses the light of the sun shining through a crystal in a secret map room to point the way to the treasure. It was also inspired by the classic Uncle Scrooge adventure comics of the 1950s by legendary artist Carl Barks, most notably The Prize of Pizarro and The Seven Cities of Cibola, where Donald Duck, Scrooge, and his nephews explore a lost South American temple evading poison darts and a giant round boulder after lifting a golden idol from its pedestal. Two can play the copycat game, however, as the popularity of Indiana Jones inspired Disney to create the wildly popular DuckTales cartoon series of the 1980s. George Lucas came up with a concept for Indiana Jones around the same time he was writing another little film you may or may not have heard of called Star Wars. The plot of Raiders of the Lost Ark is brilliant in its simplicity. The crazy crowds are trying to get their grubby Nazi mitts on the Ark of the Covenant, and it's up to Dr. Jones to stop them. Where the film shines is in its iconic action set pieces that drive the plot forward. We begin in the jungles of Peru as Dr. Jones and his shifty companions, including Alfred Molina, in his first on-screen appearance, search for a golden idol. Fun fact, the scene where Molina is covered in living tarantulas was his first day of shooting, and his aversion to spiders is ironic, considering he would go on to play Dr. Octopus in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. After a few pitfalls, Indy learns that perhaps it is better to go solo on his treasure hunting adventures from now on, after being betrayed by his guide, who makes a point of leaving him behind as the temple collapses before ultimately becoming a thief kebab on a spiky booby trap, leaving Indy to play the very first game of Temple Run as he tries to escape from the giant boulder. As Jones barely escapes death, we are introduced to one of the main antagonists of the film, the fiendish Frenchie Belloc, who takes Indy's prize, giving us, the audience, the first look at one of the many reasons Dr. Jones is such an endearing character. He's always behind the 8 ball, and we love to root for the underdog. And through his grit and determination, Indy pushes ahead through adversity to save the day. After being sent on his mission to stop the Nazis by the government, Indy makes his first stop along his globe-trotting adventure in a little dive bar in Nepal to obtain an artifact that will help him locate the Ark. The only problem is, the Nazis are there too, and in the ensuing melee, the bar run by Indy's old flame is burned down. So Indy and Marion head to Cairo in search of the Ark. While filming in Tunisia, everyone in the cast and crew came down with severe food poisoning, except for director Steven Spielberg, who brought his own supply of bottled water and SpaghettiOs. Harrison Ford was so ill in fact, he couldn't perform the elaborate fight scene they had planned between him and the swordsman, leading Ford to suggest, "Why don't I just shoot him?" giving us one of the most memorable and iconic moments in film. Indy finds the location of the Ark in the Well of Souls, and according to Spielberg, the sight of the crew laying out 7,000 snakes in order to create this sequence nearly made him vomit. The film was not without its share of dangers as well, as one of the pythons died after being bitten by a cobra. After Jones uncovers the Ark, Our sleazy little Frenchman and his wacky Nazi pals show up and take it from him, leading to the most thrilling and complex action set piece of the film, as Indy chases down the truck on horseback, fighting his way past truckloads of Nazis in order to reclaim the Ark. Ford badly bruised his ribs being dragged behind the truck during this scene. This wasn't the only injury he suffered during the filming process, however. During his fight at the airfield, the plane's tire accidentally ran over his knee during a failed take, tearing his ligaments. But rather than risk a Tunisian hospital, Ford merely wrapped his knee in ice between takes and carried on. The Nazis are successful in claiming the Ark, and like a kid who just can't resist opening his Christmas presents, they just have to take a peek at what's inside to face melting results. And while Indiana Jones is a near-perfect film, it could have been much different. Steve Martin was considered for the role of Dr. Jones, but chose to make pennies from heaven instead. Bill Murray dropped out of the project due to his scheduling conflicts with Saturday Night Live. Tom Selleck was Steven Spielberg's second choice, but was already committed to Magnum P.I. Interestingly, Tim Matheson was also considered, and I have to say, as a massive fan of the series myself, it would have been pretty wizard to see Johnny Quest grow up to become Indiana Jones. Ford was cast, however, less than 3 weeks before principal photography began, and the rest is history. In the end, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a landmark in film that defined the action-adventure genre, without which we would not have the Brendan Fraser Mummy series, Tomb Raider, National Treasure, or Uncharted. Even the minecart levels in Donkey Kong Country were directly inspired by the Temple of Doom. The name Indiana Jones has become synonymous with adventure, and 38 years later at the time of this review, he is still the quintessential treasure hunting hero. His hat and jacket are even on display in the Smithsonian because he's so iconic, it belongs in a museum. So for its memorable characters, thrilling action set pieces, iconic film score by composer John Williams, and sense of adventure, I give this film 5 out of 5 Death Stars. Raiders of the Lost Ark is impressive. Most impressive. We have a little treat for you next week for being such faithful soldiers of the Empire. A Star Wars Indiana Jones crossover event. R2 and C-3PO are engraved in the Well of the Souls after all. So tune in next week for our short, Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Blood Moon. It will take place in my typical review, but Star Wars Day is coming up. I've got my channel's 1-year anniversary to plan, a rebellion to destroy, and a galaxy to run. I'm swamped. This has been Vader Reviews. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications, and follow me on Twitter @Vader Reviews. You do not yet realize your importance. Share these videos, and together we will rule the internet. And always remember, you don't know the power of the dark side.